Hermitcraft, a world of fun and mischief where everything is peaceful. Unless you're these guys.
His name is Jono.
The Hermatrix was an ARG started by Joakim77 and Rendog in Season 8 of Hermitcraft. If you don't know what a Hermitcraft is, then why are you watching this? The Hermatrix was a continuous storyline that lasted throughout the entire season. The audience helped decode hints, solve puzzles, and figure out how all the pieces fit together so that Doc and Ren could progress. So, let's break it down. Just a disclaimer, this story is told from my perspective as someone who was closely involved with the community side of the ARG. If I get something wrong, I will hear it from Doc or Ren, and everyone has their own interpretation of the story and how these events transpired. In episode 1 of the season, Doc and Ren settle themselves at a shipwreck. Within said shipwreck, they discover a weird book with binary as title and some scrambled writing for the author. The title of the book translated to the letter H. Upon opening the book, they discover some cryptic instructions that baffle them in the moment. It contains some coordinates that point to one specific chunk somewhere in the Season 8 world, and Doc, being the absolute madman he is, decides to follow the instructions. He digs out the chunk, builds things on the side, and places a hopper in the middle. Throwing in the book, he gets logged out, and then as another hermit restart the server. When he joins back in, the Octa chunk has been born. 8 spawners in a single chunk. And a zoom in on one of the spawners reveals a QR code that links to the now infamous Hermatrix website. And thus, an ARG was born. And this made the community go crazy. The Hermatrix website required a code, a simple password to access what lay hidden beyond. We just needed to crack it. Looking back at it now, the code was actually quite simple, but at the time, we were stressed. Hidden throughout Doc's video were various references to the number 8. A lot of us assumed it was part of the clue, and a lot of us assumed it was just referencing Season 8. When Ren's video came out, we knew we had the full puzzle. We just needed to fit it together. Ren looked into a barrel at one point in the video and showed off 8 bone meal. This was obviously part of the clue, but what part? The community was struggling. We started brute forcing codes, trying every little thing that came to mind for days, until finally, we got it. A user named Bowsen finally cracked the code. They tried the code #FFFFFF8. The hashtags with the F's being the hex code for the color white, aka bone meal, and the 8 being the clue from Doc's video. This brought us into the Hermatrix website. The letters shifted, forming coordinates for somewhere else in the Hermitcraft map. Meanwhile, the title of the page changed to Lucy. It took us ages, but we got there in the end. I feel like now is a good time to mention that a lot of the lore Doc and Ren had planned for this ARG went out the window because Ren got very busy in real life and there just wasn't enough time to do it all. Between episodes, a few things changed and some things were discovered. Let's break them down. A terminal was added to the Hermatrix website. Upon clicking it, you were presented with the Grumbot terminal. Grumbot was an Easter egg and a red herring and did not mean that Grumbot himself was important. The terminal required a login, but we knew we didn't have the right information just yet. It was quickly figured out that the terminal login was in the user:password format. We assumed we needed to wait until the next episodes. And that we did. In Doc's video, there was some Morse code that translated to Octa. Yes, with the exclamation point. In Ren's video, there was similar Morse code that was translated to GAM. In an instant, the community knew this was an anagram for Goatman. We assumed this was the password. Now we just needed the username. And that was solved quickly. A user named Insidiae did something. I'm not smart enough to understand what they did exactly, but here's a screenshot. When guest:"Goatman" was put into the terminal, we were in. That's when the next videos dropped. And oh boy, were these packed full of clues and details. Doc walked up to a goat with a name tag, and when he attempted to rename it to Klaus, the goat turned upside down, and the name became Visionaire.
I had named you Klaus.
This told us that we needed to decode something with a Visionaire cipher. And for the rest of that episode, the boys went to the coordinates. They led to a cave beneath Suzuma's base. The 3 of them went down to find a book containing some cryptic instructions, as well as the letters L and C. Next to the book, a lot of axolotls. Each one had a name, a different letter each time. And here's one of the few times where a different hermit got involved with the ARG. In Suzuma's episode, he picked up the axolotls and hovered over them in a certain order, LMVCCIKB, and this is where we were too fast for the hermits. We took the letters and input them into a Visioneer cipher, which also requires key. We used the one clue we had, Lucy, and it worked. Using Lucy as the key and the letters from the axolotls as the text, the Visioneer cipher came out with the word asteroid. When Raine's video released and we got the letters U and Y from a book, we realized we were not supposed to crack the code just yet. Inputting the word asteroid into the Grumbot terminal granted us access to the Hermetius Defense Array, an asteroid shooting minigame with a massive high score. Whenever someone shoots, the score went down. We quickly realized we had to get it to 0. During this, Doc suddenly arrived in the Discord out of nowhere and posted a single time. At the time mentioned, Doc tweeted out the song Hyper Hyper by Scooter and said the band would make us hyper. Inputting the word Scooter on the Hermatrix website, we got a message saying Hyper Mode Level 1 and the title changed to HDA Hyper Mode. And finally, after 4 days of playing the game, we reached 0. After the minigame reached 0, the word Thunderstruck appeared at the bottom of it. When this was put into the Hermatrix website, it came out with a Planet Minecraft link. Upon putting it in, we found this cryptic page with the Lightmatica download. When we decrypted the title, we got the message Hermatrix Blueprint 2 Power Node 1. The world contained a walker, later revealed to be Power Node 1. There was a pink axolotl in the tank and a book inside. The book was called, with the text stating, "To wake from slumber, choose a side." In the next episode, Doc and Raine built this walker on the actual server. They took the axolotl named C from the previous clue and put it in the tank. Following this, an insane lightning storm struck on top of the walker, and the axolotl changed from pink to blue. Within the walker, the boys found a book that was different from the original one in the schematic. The title was binary and translated to L, and the book said, "The new My Save the Old" inside it. It also contained another set of coordinates. Doc confirmed in this next episode that Gem and Pearl, the new Hermit set season, would be joining him and Raine on a trip to the new coordinates. He then found a book, the title translating to P. The book's now spelling help. The contents of the book had a date and said hermatrix.defrag.com. The collab with Gem and Pearl did happen, but it didn't produce many clues, hence why I will not be getting into it in this video, as this video is a recap about plot details and story. Be sure to check out their videos about it if you're interested. During the time leading up to the date that was in the book, we discovered that the Hermatrix Defrag was a Minecraft server, and on the date, it opened. Joining in, we spawned on a small island floating above the spawn chunks of the Hermitcraft Season 8 map. We were given a shovel, axe, and pickaxe. We quickly figured out that we needed to dig. A counter counted up who had dug the most blocks, and at this point Doc and Raine started live streaming as they were watching in spectator mode. Beneath the world, we found an end portal, which slowly started filling up with ender eyes as we dug more. It took hours and hours. Hermits, why must you torture us? But upon completing the big dig, we all entered the end. We found another power node, different in design from the first one. Doc replied to this by typing in the chat, "I guess we're building this next." We then lined up to get screenshot with the boys. Following this, there was a long break from the Hermatrix, but eventually, it resumed. In Doc's 24th/Raine's 16th episode, the moon rock crash-landed into their chicken farm. It was called /delete hermatrix-v8.simul. The moon had been getting closer to the Hermitcraft world for a few weeks now, and the hermits were panicking. Later in the episode, Raine placed the moon rock on an altar, and it began emanating Morse code. After a long process, we translated it to "wake up." Throughout the next episodes, the moon gets repeatedly closer, causing anomalies in the server's gravity. Later on, Doc went to visit Raine, whom he'd been saying was acting strange. And Doc, strange may have been an understatement. Raine was seemingly possessed. He was muttering some weird phrases before asking Doc if he can hear her too. He can't at first, but as he gets closer, he can as well. And so, he starts muttering away too, and then Doc turns to the dark side, even more than you already had, and Raine joined. Together, they expressed an interest in slaying Mumbo Jumbo. They kept repeating, his name is Mumbo Jumbo, and changed their skins to wear cult uniforms. And that's when it started, the Octa sacrifices. Doc and Raine began slaying the other hermits, those hermits being Mumbo, Grian, Cubfank, Paralis, Joe Hills, Impulse, and eventually each other. Getting their heads and placing them around the moon rock eventually gave the killers a new book, and the contents were that. We quickly deduced that this was a torrent. Upon downloading it, we got a zip file for our Minecraft world that required a password to extract, and we were stuck, agonizing over what the password might be, with Doc dropping subtle hints every now and then. And when we were completely defeated, Doc gave us the answer, and we all collectively facepalmed. Wake up! With the file unzipped, we managed to get into the world. We found a weird terminal with some redstone components underneath and 8 observers facing up. Had the ability to summon a lightning storm, much like the one on Power Node 1. As we were exploring this world, Doc popped up with a cryptic message about morals and asking if we did the right thing or not. Doc, you honestly terrify me sometimes. The world is dissolving, the moon is nearing, and the boys need to make their final escape. Quickly, Doc and Ren built the terminal in the center of Octa Town and figured out that they needed to place the 8 heads on the 8 observers. As they did so, the lightning storm started, the middle of the terminal fell in, and they jumped in after it, moments before the moon crashed into the world. And this leads us to... the Hermitcraft, a ship piloted by operators Goatman and Renbob, designed to safely transport the hermits between seasons. While on the way to Season 8, the ship was attacked by a virus they dubbed the Nothing. It was set to destroy all creativity within the minds of the hermits, and it needed to be stopped. Quickly, the operators simulated a fake Season 8 for the hermits, to keep them occupied while they dealt with the virus. They gave 2 hermits, Doc and Ren, the tools to get rid of it. Using Project Octagon, as well as Power Node 1, they managed to nearly eliminate the virus. The last piece? The Moonatrix Octa firewall. And with that in place, the virus was seemingly eradicated, and the ship went on its way to Hermitcraft Season 9. However, you have to remember, this is only the beginning.